Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in tonight on this very brisk Thursday night here in the Midwest. I really appreciate again everyone that has given their comments and their support to the channel. Again, as I've said in the previous video, we wouldn't have made it this far without you guys. So thank you a lot. That being said, we're going to start off in introducing really fascinating guest tonight. It's Carla. Carla, thank you so much for coming on and giving your time here to be an Indigenous podcast. Um, and if you don't mind, maybe you could explain a little bit to the guest of like who you are,
Okay,
please.
my name is Carla Bernarda. My last name is Pailamilla. By my father. Uh, I've been in Canada. I live in Canada for 45 years. Uh, I was born in Chile. I lived in Argentina before I came to Canada.
Yeah, I'd love to know, like, I believe you said you're from the west part of Canada, correct?
Um, yeah, Vancouver.
Vancouver, yeah. How was life growing up in Canada? Because I'm from the U.S. I've lived all my life here, for
Uh,
the most part. Um, it's been
um,
enjoyable.
I came in the 70s. In those times, there were still residential schools. Um, there were four reserves where I grew up. That was North Battleford, Saskatchewan, not in BC. It's another province in the middle of Canada, and lots of racism. As a child, people like the Canadians will tell me, go back to the reservation. Uh, so I grew up with that. I didn't live in the reservation because we weren't qualified to live in the reservation. We were immigrants because of my dark skin. Um, so the racism was like from the beginning.
Yeah, you mean directed mostly at Native American people? You mean, yeah.
Native Canadians, Cree. There's the population. There's Cree, CREE. They're Cree Nation, super big, and they weren't allowed to. They had to school from their reservation, which was like 45 minutes. Some reservations were 45 minutes away from school. They had to commute every day. Most of them didn't finish their school year because it was like such a hassle.
Yeah, it's really sad to hear that, there was the news that came out about, the children that were many of the bodies were buried, below a church, I think, and indigenous
Um,
children.
and they were residential schools. The government paid these schools, these churches, to make these indigenous people white, which was awful. And always wonder, why the population was so low. It was because they took the kids away from them. Most of them didn't make it. It's really sad. And I seen it. I saw it. Like they weren't allowed to come to town, like to where we live.
Yeah.
So this advantage was so great.
It's really sad because, I think Canada is viewed, at least from a lot of Americans, as a very like welcoming, open-minded, country.
They wanted,
You know, sorry.
they wanted to make it so everybody could see like that. But if you really go deep, it's
Yeah, it's
bad.
quite, yeah, dark.
Yeah, very dark.
And even, the administration itself, in my opinion, I don't feel is like doing enough to compensate indigenous people in Canada, or just bringing more light to this problematic issue. um,
They with apologies. They want reconciliation, but I'm an activist, and I believe that there can be no reconciliation until all the truth is out, and we feel like they should compensate them.
yeah, And Ancient America's left. You have a comment on here, like even the Canadian government, what they did to the Inuit people, when they exterminated dogs as well. I
Yeah,
didn't even know about that, but yeah, there's just so many things, especially with Canada, that really aren't covered, at least in United States, so much, um, because well, at least a lot of Americans think middle age, like 20s, 30s is like viewing, as I said before, Canada is like a welcoming like refugees and people over, not discriminating and whatnot, but there's still many issues, as I said, with Canada.
maybe in the last 30 years, the immigration has been like non-European, which is okay. But before that, it was all European immigration in Canada. And I think it was like in the last 30 years, they kind of like got used to like not being so racist. But the racism is still around, especially if you go down to where I grew up in Saskatchewan, Alberta. Very redneck.
I feel that in the United States, we had the law. I think it was 1956 or 1960 something, where they allowed more people to immigrate from Asia, Africa, and like other countries that weren't European. Um, even then, we still have unfortunate issues that go on throughout the United States. But yeah, I didn't know that about Canada too. That they also made some changes as well. But it makes sense in
Yeah,
terms
I
of like bringing in more people from Asia.
because of the wars that's been going on for the past 30 something years. So every time there's a big war, there's immigrants coming. Um, Anything that happens kind of will bring some immigrants. Like right now, we're gonna bring like a whole bunch of Ukrainians.
Yeah,
That like lot, which is like good because we wanna
no, no,
help.
yeah, help with
No?
with the problem that's going on right now. It's really crazy to see what's happening. Um, but I won't go so far into that right now. I wanted to talk about more so like with the script, and for our guests that really don't know that much about the Mapuche people.
Mm.
I really was looking for, and I'm still thankful that you're on, because not many people in the U.S. really know about who the Mapuche are, and like their view of like colonization is that like all the indigenous people of the Americas, except like those that got conquered by the British, were forced to submit to the Spanish conquistadors, Spanish government. But the Mapuche were not like that. I kind of view that almost similar to Africa, where most of Africa was colonized under some European country, but Ethiopia was not. So you can't say like all of the continent was like under um, some colonial control. Now, before someone corrects me, I know that Ethiopia was occupied by Italy, but
Oh,
being occupied and colonized, taken over, are two different things.
mm.
Um, and I think obviously it's almost similar to the Mapuches in South America as well. Um, so maybe if you could explain a little bit to our guests, like the Mapuches, they inhabit like Chile and uh, Argentina, and are fairly nomadic, if I'm not correct.
Um, mm,
Were nomadic.
some of them are.
Yeah,
If they live by the coast, they don't move too much. But the ones that live by the Andes, they move. They move when it's winter time. They move down a little bit and then they go back. Uh, but the ones by the coast, they don't move much. But yeah, they're nomads too. Yeah, but their territory was huge.
yeah, like really big. I had read that most of the Mapuches in Chile, at least, either they are in is a city called Santiago, the capital.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the urban Mapuches they call it. They're urbanized, but
yeah, urban.
and they still speak the language Mapudungun.
Do you, and my question now, this it might be an interesting question, is do you think that there are some Mapuches in Santiago that have just become completely like Latinized and do not
Yeah,
see themselves as a indigenous person or a Mapuche person? They now have take on this new identity of being Latin, essentially.
the very minimum though.
Yeah.
The very them. Uh, Especially if they have the last name, very hard. They have we have specific last names,
Beautiful
and
last names. Yeah.
you, thank you.
Yeah.
And, by the last name, they catch you right away that you're Mapuche just by the last name. And but yeah, some of them do did get colonized, especially the ones that um, they get integrated to religion,
Yeah.
like European religion, Christianity. Those are the ones we consider that are colonized, and they got assimilated.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there are a lot that were colonized. I think, well, one of my favorite parts of Mapuche history is the wars that the Mapuche won in southern Chile, where like I forgot what the war was called. It started with an A. But the Spaniards were losing, and they had to go run and hide in the forest,
Yeah,
while the Mapuche people were like destroying village after
they,
village.
they burned the city, the whole.
Yeah, but it's really impressive to me because I think that's where the Spanish Empire had extended its tentacle all the way down to where maybe, well, two of the reasons in my opinion is because the Spanish Empire was so overstretched at that point. Going from Mexico all the way down to Argentina is not feasible for them. So I think that's one reason why they were not so successful. And then the other reason obviously was that the Mapuche people were very talented in war, and
I'll,
knew
I'll,
how to. Sorry.
I'll tell you a story. Why?
Yeah,
So
please.
sort it all started with the Incas. So before the Spaniards came to America, South America, um, the Incas were an empire, and they had queens and kings, and they were in Chile, but they were fighting with the Mapuches. The Mapuches wouldn't let them in. They fought for centuries, and so it was an ongoing war with the Incas. And so all of a sudden the Europeans came, and the Mapuche says, "Oh well, the Incas just got a little wider," so they kept on fighting. So that lasted till now. So it never
Yeah,
finished. The war never finished. It was just from different. The Incas didn't come anymore to conquer, and what the Incas wanted was gold and silver, and there was a lot of silver. I don't know about gold, but I know there was a lot of silver. And yeah, they took slaves too, and the Incas did. So when the Europeans came, they also wanted the same thing. They wanted gold, they wanted silver, especially silver. And so the Mapuche just they thought it was the same people, and that's something really it always stuck in my mom. My dad used to say that because they figured that the Incas just got horses and they got better at fighting until they realized it wasn't the Incas, it was the Spaniards.
yeah,
100, 200 years later. Yeah, it happened.
yeah. I think that's really fascinating to me because it's the Spaniards finally like are losing. Lost wars, because they were quite successful in dividing and conquering, especially like having other indigenous people fight the wars for them.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that that's really interesting to me, and the fact that even my ancestors from the Incan Empire lost to the Mapuche people. So it's really fascinating, and the fact that like um, the Mapuche people, in an article that I read, they were able to learn about like how to flank like certain like military groups, from that were Incans and also Spaniards as well. So they learned the art of war, which is quite impressive to me. Um, but yeah, thank you for sharing that. I was going to say to the audience, if you had any questions, please, by all means, you're free to ask. Um, but yeah, I think I wanted to move on to what Chen, if I pronounce that correctly.
Go on.
Yeah, if you could maybe explain a little bit of that, to us because I watched a video about that and I didn't really have enough time to analyze more.
So wilderness, it it could be anything. It could be a tree, it could be the air, it could be oxygen, it could be water. Water most likely, fire, and the multiple God. Um, they have to be respected. And our cosmovision, the way we look at life, you have to respect all that. And that's our God. Life has to be respected.
Yeah, so respect for life. That's really great because one of the videos that I had watched was a Mapuche person explaining like the love for like nature, for the world that they live in, um, and not like making so much destruction, like the Spaniards had caused, and like how unfortunately like many settlers are causing as well, like the German settlers like destroying like a lot of forest and land. So it's sad. Um,
Yeah. And we believe that everything is sacred. So if you put a dam, and that's what they're doing right now, they've been doing it for years. Dams, they're putting dams where there was a river. That those rivers are drying. So, and those rivers pass through Mapuche territory, and so everything that for us is God dying. So we're fighting for that, and we've been fighting
yeah.
for that.
I was going to ask you, what do you think, just the current issues right now facing, Mapuche people, you would say it would just territory, land,
Yeah.
being taken.
Um, what we want, or what my people want, is whatever was taken for the government to repay it back, the territory that we lost. And we're retaking already some of the territory. We're reclaiming it. And then you get the the settlers, we call them the settlers, crying. Oh, they lost it. It was ours. Nothing. This has been ours. And so they accuse us of terrorism, and we're vandalizing. And this
Yeah,
has been going on for a long time. And we're not going to stop. It's not going to stop until we get it all back. They took 90% of the territory.
yeah, they really did take a lot. Um, and it's sad. And I really hope, more land can, be given to the Mapuche people. Maybe one day, like, because the new president that just came in, at least
Yes,
for Chile, he
yes,
seems to be a more understanding person
yes,
than previous presidents. So, I am hopeful that things can change,
yes.
that the Mapuche people do get, the land that they deserve. And it can be, peaceful change too, you know. Um, Someone said here, the country government at Walampu. I'm not sure where Walampu is.
Oh, one Mapu is the whole territory. One Mapu is Argentina and Chile. The whole
Okay,
territory.
the whole territory. Yeah. Would you say the same issues are, well, they're very similar between Chile and Argentina for the Mapuche people, or would you say that the government of Argentina might be more harsh than the Chilean, or the same?
It's the same because we're in both sides of the One Mapu. We're considered terrorists. We're the bad people, and we're labeled like that. And with their laws, according to their laws, uh, we're terrorists. So don't just take us to jail and then ask questions later. What did you do in there? So, like, just by being Mapuche, you're already a terrorist. So you're already got the dots.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
it's been going on forever. In Argentina, that's the same thing. Argentina, that's the same thing.
Yeah. And I'd like to maybe talk more about like what the settlers' view are of the Mapuche
Oh,
indigenous people.
they hate
Uh
us.
yeah.
They don't like us. Even the Chileans don't like us.
Yeah, Chileans.
Don't like us,
Yeah.
and the Argentinians don't like us either. The only people that really understand and they feel our pain and our sorrows for losing um, so much and having so much trauma um, are the people that are like um, politically left on the left side of
Sure.
politics are the ones that really understand, try to understand.
Yeah. Hopefully more people can come around too, I think. I again, like going back to like the president, I think more good change can come, within time.
I,
Um,
it's going to take a long time because those settlers, they're going to give a good fight. For the last 20 years, they've been doing acts of like they send people dressing like Mapuches to burn things or to do some violence, and then they blame it on the Mapuche. The police and the army is all in it, and
yeah,
then they blame it on the Mapuches, and then the Mapuches go to jail, and it's like a circle. It just never stops. So it's been going on for a long time, and they do the same thing in Argentina too. And and they have a forest in the southern part of Chile, and the forest there the forest is like natural. It's natural. It only grows in the southern part of Chile, and they're just cutting it clear. And for us, they're sacred. All those forests are sacred. They've been there forever, and they're cutting them and they're planting eucalyptus. And eucalyptus is a very uh, invasive
yeah,
species.
it's foreign.
All like weeds, and they just killed everything that's uh, original, like uh, the shrubs or medicine, because we use a lot of uh, alternative medicine from the trees and from some shrubs. That is being used for centuries. It's disappearing.
Yeah, I read about that too. That German settlers and like those that are coming here, they bring or like you said, the eucalyptus trees and like these foreign plants
Yep,
from
yep.
like Europe, Asia, and whatnot, and they just like replace the native plants there.
And
Um,
they don't grow
it's
anymore because
yeah,
they're so invasive that they kill everything that's around them because they're the ones that want to. And for them it's good because they make money because eucalyptus they grow like within a 2 or 3 years they got lumber right there. But our natural forest is dying, like and the dams too. The dams will do another thing because no water, everything dries up and they die too. We also have a tree, and it's called, I don't know if, I don't think they have it in the United States. It's called the monkey Paso tree. Never heard of it? It's nothing to do with a monkey because we don't have monkeys, but it's called the Araucaria tree in Spanish, or I guess Araucaria, that's the other name, but here they call it the Araucaria tree because it grows here. Because the weather here in Vancouver is the same weather as in Chile. Same.
really okay.
Yeah, super cool. And anyway, so this tree is sacred for us. Like that's like a sacred tree. Like take care of that tree. Anyway, that tree lasts for 1,000 years, maybe more. They're ancient. They're going from dinosaurs. Well, there's a forest of those trees, and they're called araucarias, and we live off those trees. Those trees have a seed. We eat that seed. That's our bread. And anyway, so they're cutting those trees. For us, that's our God. Like we treat that tree like a god, and because that tree could last more than 1,000 years, the one tree, and it's a big forest, they're cutting it down, and they only grow in Chile and the southern part of Chile and Argentina. They grow here too. They brought it here. The settlers brought it here 100 years ago, and they grow here because it's a similar weather here in Vancouver or BC, and it's just devastating. It's like for us, it's horror. Like it's like a nightmare. We're trying to protect those trees.
You would think people would have more respect for nature, especially like with a lot of the destruction of the rainforests in South America as well. Like the whole world knows about that, and unfortunately, the president in Brazil doesn't really have much of a high regard for nature.
No, that's all about money to them.
Yeah,
And that's the thing. Um, for us, being Mapuche, and that's what Mapuche means for us. It means it's an act of rebellion and resistance against this neoliberal system and capitalist system that's killing our Mother Earth and our Mother Nation. And that's what we fight. And that's our belief. It's sad though, like if you really think about it, because you're fighting against like multinational, you're fighting against the whole world. You're fighting against people say, oh well, you're gonna start. Like, for them it's all about money. For us, it's not about money. It's about saving what we think is sacred.
preserving, nature and how it is, and not wanting change. Thank you for that. I think a couple other people had a couple questions. How do the Mapuche view like other indigenous groups,
Oh,
especially like Quechua and
oh yeah, we get along with them. The Quechuas are in the northern part of Chile. They're like in the desert. There's a desert. Southern Peru. There's the Atacama Desert and Quechuas and Aymara. Bolivia also Chile. We get along very well. Very well.
it's interesting you say the northern part of Chile because I know that like I don't know how much of the northern territory of Chile, but it was a part of Bolivia. And then like there was a
Yeah,
war between Chile and Bolivia, and they took a good chunk of it.
the War of Pacific. The Pacific War was called. But you know what? This is so funny because that war, and Bolivia shouldn't have lost that. It was all started by the English. The English settlers. They made Chile fight against Bolivia and Peru.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Back in the 1800s or the early 1900s, I believe, there was it was called salitre, and it's a natural fertilizer. It was only in Chile, the only part in the world with this natural fertilizer. So Chile was like booming because they had that fertilizer. So all the English settlers came to northern Chile, which before it used to be Peru and Bolivia. And so these English settlers, because they wanted more territory, they made Chile fight against Bolivia and Peru and Bolivia lost piece of that part of their country. And it was all because of them. It wasn't because of Chile. It was like this English from England,
Mm-hmm.
and they lost, and that's how Bolivia lost their way to the sea, and Peru lost. um, I think it was Antofagasta or Quique. No, Antofagasta, I think, the northern part. And yeah, and it was like it wasn't even a Chilean war, and that was like just a greedy war. Greedy because after that, like after they won the war in Chile, I mean Bolivia and Peru lost their territory or their peace. Uh, the German invented the synthetic fertilizer, and the whole industry went down. Now it's a ghost town what that mine was. because the synthetic fertilizer was easier and cheaper to make. So they took all the industry back to Europe, and Bolivia and Peru lost. I was like, so down.
Yeah, it's really sad. Really sad
So
outcome.
have Quechua and Aymara, and they have their own flag and they have their own language, and they're very, very strong after that in Chile. And we we got because we kind of like we were very influenced by the Incas. We have an art culture. We have in the Mapuche culture. We have a lot of Inca uh, words together with in the Mapudungun, and a lot of the words that we use in Spanish in Chile or the Chilean Spanish. They have a lot of Quechua and Aymara.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
That the Inca Empire was very influential in Chile.
Hmm.
They got all the way to where the Mapuches were, but they couldn't get through. They couldn't get through.
Oh, yeah. No matter how hard my ancestors tried, we failed.
That, do you know that I was talking to this Mexican guy? He said that the Incas got all the way to Mexico.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they got all
They,
the way to Mexico. They went all the way up there. They were trading. They do a lot of trading.
yeah, the trading actually kind of makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, they did trading and they went all the way up there. I was like, whoo, wow.
Yeah, it is quite impressive how the extensive trading system was in the Americas. Like I think the Tenochtitlan, they had a zoo, and the book, oh gosh, I forgot which book it was, but it said that there were buffalo, like bison, in this zoo in Tenochtitlan, which means that like the Mexica, Aztec, people had to
Yeah.
have gone very far, like up north into the Americas, like United States,
Oh, bro.
um,
Oh,
to get those bison. Um,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure maybe they even came all the way here too, especially in the summer.
yeah. And ancient America says I think Indian artifacts in West Mexico. So yeah, really, really crazy how again like how the trading was. I think he actually had a question as well, and it was: do the Mapuche people have any like land similar to reservations in the United States and Canada, or is it
Uh,
completely different?
it's a territory. Um, it's a territory. Like let's say it's a province or a little state, and in that state, and that's the thing, in the state, but the police and the army will go in there anyway. And so what we want, what they want, and what I'm advocating for is that Mapuches should have their own government. We already have our own flag, and it flies together with the Chilean flag because we are a nation. So, but what we want to have like an independent government with our own laws.
In the country?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like parallel to the to Chile, to the Chilean government, and that's what we want, and we want to learn that too. We don't want
What- We don't. You don't want what? Sorry.
we don't want much.
Yeah. And now, as far as like land, maybe like south of the Biobío River,
Yep, yep.
and then anything south. Yeah.
Up to I think Los Lagos, the lakes. It's called the lakes.
Okay.
It's like a province, it's like a province, and everybody's scared to go there because there's always something going on. There's
Yeah.
always something happening, and the army is very much present. When this prior to this new government, this guy called Piñera for the second time, one of the most wealthy Chilean in Chile, he became president twice. And because the Chileans said, "Oh well, he's rich. Maybe we'll become him rich too because he's rich. It's gonna help us become rich." No, the guy is rich. He's gonna get more rich. Not gonna give you no money. What do you think? He's rich. Anyway, so because that guy in 2019 he declared um, the Walmapu, the zone of our Mapuche zone, terrorists, and he sent a private army, and he called it Django Command, Django, uh, a Django Command, and it was like a war zone. They had bombs, tanks, you name it, bazookas, everything to control the Mapuches. Um, and because the the territory is so vast, the Mapuches hid. Uh, but it's still it's very traumatic for the new generation to be living like that in that environment. That's no good because that's going to create more discontent for the future generations. If the government treat us like that, what do we expect? It's just gonna, we're gonna become more bitter. We're gonna hate them more. So they're creating kind of like a cycle that's never gonna finish.
Yeah, I had read that, well, not read, I'd watched a video where someone had said like the current issue or the current environment is like the Wild West, where now
Yeah,
the Chilean government is not doing a whole lot right now, just kind of letting things settle because I saw the settlers or the German settlers, the video that I had watched is very interesting to me how so many of the settlers are German, by the way, or Swiss. Um,
after Second World War II, they all went to Chile.
yeah,
All went to Chile and
yeah,
Argentina. And
Argentina.
you know why? Because they were given free land. Free land.
Yeah,
As far as you can see, oh, that's yours. As long as you put a school in whatever, a grocery store, you're fine.
yeah,
Clear land, make it profitable. And so that's how they started coming in. And yeah, they're like filthy rich, those guys right now.
yeah,
But it was all the government. And the thing is that after Pinochet was a dictator that we had in 1973. He 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 wrote a new constitution. So he wrote in the constitution that the indigenous, we're talking Aymara, Quechuas, Mapuches, and Mapuches, uh, they will not have no rights and were considered terrorists. So since then, it, and he took a lot of land too at the same time, and he stole the land. And and after that, because it's a constitution, you can't do anything. And that's why it's very important that this new government, with the promise that they're gonna change the constitution. They're gonna write a new constitution, and this constitution is gonna be written by some Mapuche leaders, what they want, some Quechuas and some Aymaras. They're gonna help write this new constitution to include them as indigenous and to include them what they want out of the government and what rights they need. So it's good. It's a good thing
yeah. I
because
think
no
it's
constitution cannot include their indigenous people because they're part of your country. You can't exclude them. And that's what the dictator did.
yeah, yeah. And for those that aren't sure who Pinochet is, he's a former dictator, president of Chile. He, started some very harsh laws against indigenous people, Mapuche people, and one that I had read about was his assimilation through nationalism,
Yep.
and wanting to fight like this decolonized world that he saw as a threat.
Hmm.
So he pretty much wanted to like push that like everyone was Chilean, like there was no indigenous. Very similar to Jose Cast, who's
Oh,
a politician in Chile, but his parents are Nazis,
yeah.
essentially.
And he's like, oh yeah, he feels like he's 100% Chilean and he's looking after the Chileans. Well, his dad was like a Nazi. He killed Jews for a living. Like,
Yeah,
and then he came to Chile and there's like nothing. And we're supposed to accept that? No,
yeah. I
no.
I I know that maybe it sounds discriminating on my part, but like I don't think I would let someone be a politician if your parents were Nazis. I just you could be the nicest person in the world, but it's not worth it. It's
And
not
that's
worth having problems.
if you're light skinned, because there's a lot of discrimination. If you're light skinned and you're European, you
Get a position in Chilean
for
administration.
sure, for sure, you have the advantage. You have the advantage of education. You're like, and I'm pretty sure all those Germans they went to Chile, they already had a lot of money when they came, so they had a good start.
Yeah, the Nazis. I think a lot of them fled to Argentina. So went after World War II. So it makes sense that some trickled into Chile as well, but not into Peru and Bolivia so much. But Chile,
Oh, I don't know why.
yes,
I think it was because Chile and Argentina were giving out free land. I think that's what it was. It was like same thing here in Canada. All these German people, they got free land too, indigenous land.
yeah. There's a lot of. Is there a pretty big German population in Canada? I didn't know that. Usually, I just think of like French or English, but not so
There's
much German.
there's a large population of Germans, um, Northern Europeans, but Germans after the Second World War too.
Yeah, that makes sense actually. We're just going through some comments here. I think someone said something about corporation businessmen trying to set up the Mapuches, burning local places to make it look like Mapuches were terrorists. Yeah, they demonize them.
It's been going on for a long time, like decades, decades.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know about Chile's media system at all, but I'm going to assume, like most Latin media systems, they kind of demonize indigenous people or make them seem like very primitive people. Um, so I would assume Chile is the same way, unfortunately. Um, now,
The
how
good
this,
thing with Chile and the Mapuches, like in 1800 and 1828, I believe, 1828, so last century, they had a treaty, and that was the thing. We won the war against the Spaniards, so they gave us a treaty, and the treaty it was composed of this big territory, and the big territory was Argentina and Chile. It's called the Walmapu, and then they turned around. I think it was 40 years later new government, or I think it became an independence, or no, I think it was an independence already, but new government, he retracted everything that the treaty was. So they broke the treaty. And then when Pinochet came along, he broke the treaty again.
yeah,
Broke it
he,
twice. So
yeah,
if you sign a treaty, that's supposed to be forever, and
yeah,
that's what we're fighting. It's like here the the Crees and all the Mohawks and all the indigenous, they have treaties. But if they were going to break the treaty, oh yeah, there's going to be hell. And that's what being happening in Chile. They break the treaties. Once you break the treaties, then yeah, you're going to have people very pissed off, and you're going to have like a lot of people supporting us. And there's a lot of people that support us. A lot of Chileans support
yeah. It's really great to know that other Chilean support the Mapuche people. I think someone had a question here regarding like um, how did the Mapuche people view like mixed children?
us.
And I know you said you were also half, Mapuche. So how?
See, this is the thing. We're not considered mestizos because we don't go under um, the colonized
Yeah,
mind. Our
excellent.
mind is you can go 10 generations being mixed, but you're still Mapuche. It doesn't matter. You could be blue eye, blonde hair, but as long as you think like a Mapuche, you're Mapuche. Even if you're 10 generations behind you. So my children are going to be Mapuche and their children are going to be Mapuche too, as long as they believe in being Mapuche. So it doesn't really, it never finish. We don't think like Europeans. We don't think like them. Our mind is different.
Yeah,
It's another way of thinking.
yeah, that's really interesting because the podcast also itself doesn't really use fall under the term like mestizo mestizaje. We're very much like against that. It's just like a word to like divide um, native indigenous people, and it creates like a very a negative like divide, like having these animosity, I think, towards others just because
Exactly.
you
It
fall
makes
under some different
you are
label.
less than that, or you're not. No, for us, as long as they can trace you back with your last name, like let's say for me, it's my dad has the last name, and as long as that last name is there and they can trace it back, you're still considered a Mapuche descendant. And a Mapuche, if you live like a Mapuche. In Chile, I don't know. Here in Canada, is yeah, it goes by the last name and the status. There's a card they have.
Yeah. So Mapuche don't really use like blood quantum because I know in the United States, a lot of reservations use like blood quantum. It was kind of imposed on them by
Like like
European settlers, I think.
listen. There's a lot of people in Chile that are not Mapuche, but they do want to become Mapuche, and they can, and they become Mapuche, and they change their names, but they have to live in
Live
our
the life.
they live in our territory, and they have to live our way, and they have to think the way we think, and that's the only way to become Mapuche. But you can become Mapuche because Mapuche is like it's a way of thinking, it's a way of looking at life,
Yeah.
and anti, like I said, it's an anti-imperialist. We don't believe in imperial. We don't believe in capitalism. We don't believe in neoliberalism. We are the way we were thousands of years ago.
Yeah. And thank you for answering those questions. I think we would do one move on the script because again, I want to keep it under an hour. Folks, for the audience, please, maybe I think we'll answer a few more questions towards the end because there's just a few other parts that we would like to cover and which I'm curious about too, as well. We talked about Pinochet. It's interesting because Pinochet, he's of French descent or he's half French or something. So that really shows you like the diversity in terms of like, there's German settlers, French. And I even saw a politician in Chile, and he had an English sounding name. He was like red hair, but I forgot his name.
Oh,
Um,
I think it was Walker. Walker.
maybe it was. I
Yeah,
think he was
yeah,
on the right side of the political spectrum.
yeah. They're most of them on the right side. They're usually white, uh, either English, German, or somewhere upper Northern Europe, and they're all politicians, and they're so smart because they they got, I guess, they make careers out of making politicians that are right wing, so they can put on laws, so they can exploit the population. Uh, Chile is considered kind of like an apartheid country. There's the low class and there's the high class. The low class are usually the darker ones, and then you get the upper class, they're in white, like very white, and they keep it white.
Yeah, yeah. It's I hope that there can be more Mapuche politicians that can be inserted in the
I
government.
hope so. I
Yeah,
hope so. And there are some. Not maybe right now they're still in school, but I'm hope that in the future there will be more, because our
yeah,
population, Mapuche population, is like a lot.
yeah, definitely. And I'm hopeful. So again, I just wanted to move on to. I think we talked about Jose Cast actually,
Yeah.
how he had very like anti-indigenous views. It was really crazy. I watched, not watched. I read his views on like indigenous people, and he pretty much didn't believe that you should practice any form of indigenous culture. He's also for like assimilation practices.
He's
Um,
abortion. He's anti gay marriage. He's anti everything. He's like super ultra right uh, Christian.
mm,
He's Christian too, but very conservative, extremely conservative. That's not good for any of uh, uh, indigenous rights or views that how we view things, and we
Yeah.
view things very different than he does.
Yeah.
And
And
also, these people live in the Walmapu area. These Germans, they live right there because that's where they got their land.
it makes me wonder why they don't just, if they see that it's such a dangerous place to live and, people have died from both sides. If I was a German, in Chile, I would probably just leave. It's not worth the money and my time. But I don't know. But I did the video that I watched of one of the German settlers was how he said that the crops that he had, that was all his money, and he didn't know what to do. But like, I don't know, it's just not worth the you know it's not worth the
There's
trouble, in my opinion.
so much racism.
Yeah.
There's a town in the southern part of Chile. It's called Villa Baviera, Bavarian village. Bavarian from Germany. They all speak German, and they have a colony there. They had a colony, and this was when Pinochet was on. And these people would help torture the Chinese, Mapuches, and left-wing activists, and they would torture them because they were like they did it in Germany, in the Second World War too, so they knew what to do. And anyway, so one escaped, and actually they made a movie about this. And so the German government from Germany uh, extradited them, uh, and it was like a kind of like a Christian guy, and he was like molesting the little German kids. And so they all spoke out. Anyway, that little town is still there. It looks like Germany. It's like being in Germany. Everybody speaks German, and it's in Chile. It's like, and the people that live in the little town, they say, "Well, we didn't know this was happening. We didn't know." But the
Yeah.
government of Pinochet or the dictatorship, they were paying them to torture people, and they don't mix with the Chileans because they want to keep it white.
Yeah, the German settlers, I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Germans. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that because read a lot about colonization, different forms of colonization between like the Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, and
Mhm.
German colonization was very unique because in the countries of Africa there were laws pretty much saying like don't like mix with African people or anyone. It's against the law. So the German people themselves were very much like wanted to remain like pure. Unlike the British,
Mhm.
there's a lot of like intermarriages between like a colony, I think in Burma or not Burma, um, Myanmar. I don't know which the
Yeah,
name
my,
they
my,
prefer. Yeah, or Hong Kong with the British, or obviously with the Spanish and the Portuguese here in the Americas as well. But with Germans, it was very much like,
yeah,
stay amongst yourselves.
yeah. They don't.
This is very
Um,
interesting.
I think it has. This is what I'm thinking. I think it has a lot to do with the religion because in the Bible it says you can't mix the blood. I don't know. This is my conclusion.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at.
That's what I think. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think that's their belief that you should keep your blood pure. You shouldn't be mixing because you can't mix the blood, and so they practice it in South America because they're surrounded by people like me.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about religion because Chile, they have a significant population that I saw that wasn't religious at all.
Yeah, there's
So
we call it laico, lake lakes. Like I don't know how you say it in English. It's a word for not believing in anything, not having a religion.
yeah,
Really like a unique religious belief. So it's we call it un país laico, laico that the majority of the people don't have a religion, and I think that says a lot But I think it has to do with all the injustice that's been going on for centuries. So people stop believing
Yeah.
because they don't believe in anything because everything is like not good. The
Mm.
religions are not good. So they just stop believing it. And they're okay. Like they're surviving.
Yeah. I bring that up because most countries in South America, Central America, as you know, are like highly like Roman, they're Catholicized. Sorry. Yeah, very
Christianity is
Catholic. Yeah, Christian or Catholic. Yeah.
very big in South America and Central America. But uh, Chile, it's one of they call themselves a laic country or país laico. That means there's not a specific religion, or most of the people don't believe in a specific religion. But there are a lot of Catholics. German population more than Central and South America. Yeah, they're very racist.
You would think that the Germans that were fleeing after World War II would maybe realize that their thinking system was quite flawed, but they still, pushed that sort of like racist Nazi style thinking in Argentina, in Chile. So it's just
And the thing is that
weird
these people
change.
came from Europe, these Germans, and people treated them like gods.
Yeah.
And so they acted like gods, and people respected them because they were white. And that's the racist mindset that we have. Uh, the Chileans have that if you're white, you're good, or if you're white, you're better than the Chileans, and they give you everything. And that's what happens, I think, when they started giving them land, Mapuche land, for free as long as they came. And they came by the boats full. And Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, and Chile.
Well, it's interesting in Paraguay, but because I had read that there are laws in place where you were forced, not well, I guess forced, but you had to marry someone that was of a different like race or ethnic group of people. So Paraguay is a very interesting country. Uh,
Paraguay, Paraguay is very interesting. Yes, yes.
yeah,
Paraguay, very interesting.
like ancient America's sarcasm. How do we? It's pretty much the Chilean government.
Exactly. The Chilean government. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that'll do it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Germans just lose. They just lost a war for this sort of thinking. Yeah,
Yeah. And oh
shut up,
yeah,
ancient Americas.
with open arms. Come on, we welcome you.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's very interesting, sad times back then. But I wanted to, I think, I don't know if I brought up who Jose Cast was. To the audience that didn't know who Jose Cast was, again, a politician in Chile of German descent with Nazi parents.
Yeah,
Um,
and he
now,
doesn't deny it.
and
And he
what?
doesn't deny that his parents are Nazis.
Yeah, wait, wasn't he running
But
against the
none of
other
you
president?
say.
Yeah. He was in the election, right? Wasn't he the other
He was
side?
running for president.
Oh, yeah, gosh.
I
Yeah.
know. He was running for president. I was like so scared. And I said, "Oh my God, if this guy goes on, like there's gonna be like a big World War IV." I'm like crazy.
It was
No,
between him and the other guy. Yeah.
it was between him and the other guy. Yeah.
The other guy, yeah. I forgot his name, the current president.
It's Boris.
Yeah.
Boris.
I think his parents are Croatian. That's interesting.
They are
Yeah.
Croatian. Uh, and but his views of society is very open because he's young and they're not religious, like that religious. Maybe he is Catholic, I don't know. But he's not that like hardcore, which
Yeah.
is young people are. I think they're more open minded about how society should work. But like I said, 4 years is nothing. In 4 years, I hope they get the Constitution done. The new Constitution, they have to rewrite that Constitution, include all the indigenous uh, nations, the Aymaras, the Quechuas, the Mapuches, and all the minorities, women's right, and they have to rewrite the whole thing. And I think they're half done, but I hope they get it done before he ends the mandate, which is 4 years. Um, so they have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I really hope they can. There can be a lot of agreements. Um, I think we're getting close here to the end, and we talked about like the general view of like Mapuches from Chilean people. As you said in the script, like they blame the Mapuches for violence. The media really propagates this more, Chilean media,
Hmm.
and makes these false claims as well about the Mapuche people. And the reason for the government involvement in Mapuche territory is, as you said, like logging investments.
Logging, yeah, logging
Yeah.
and water dams to make dams. But logging is the most profitable. They take out the indigenous or the native forest. They plant their eucalyptus, and the eucalyptus give them more money. But the eucalyptus are some invasive species, kills everything that's around them, and dries up the soil, fertile soil, dries it up. And Chile has a desert. We don't need to. It would be all desert maybe at the end of the century.
I wanted to know, like, as far as like the reasons for discrimination. We talked about the media, but do you feel that like the younger generations are more open-minded, younger Chileans and maybe Argentinians too, to where like perhaps in the past parents kind of taught this sort of like animosity, hatred for Mapuche people? Do you feel like this is kind of like taught down as to why like the cycle continues, framing the Mapuche people as in a negative light?
I think it's getting better now
Hmm.
as it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago when the dictatorship was on, because it was back in those days, it was like it was taught from the parents, and the parents, all the Mapuches are bad people, they're like out of Kano, they're terrorists. But now it's coming to light because of, everybody has a phone, everybody can take pictures. So they don't just believe what they said, but they believe, oh no, like media and social media, people are like opening their eyes and says, oh yeah, well the Mapuches can do it. It was like the army did it, or it was like the settlers did it. So people are realizing that it's not just the Mapuche, it's a conflict of money.
Mm.
Who gets the blame is the bad person, and they have the money to do it, and they don't care if they lose 50 trucks because they burn the trucks with, and then they collect the insurance of the trucks, and then they blame the Mapuche. Well, those people have nothing to lose anyway. Those trucks are insured. They're going to get their money back. But that forest, those trees that they cut, those are not going to be able to grow back. And it's, oh yeah, it's the Mapuche's fault because they have to blame somebody.
Yeah.
It's the Mapuche. Um, but now people don't believe that because, oh yeah, well, we took pictures and we have like evidence that it wasn't true. So I think it's going to get better. I'm hoping. I have hope.
Yeah, and I do too. Um, but I wanted to thank you, Carla, for coming on. This has been a great, video podcast. So now you kind of know what Indigenous podcast is about. A part of us.
I
Yeah.
thought I was nervous.
Sorry.
I was nervous.
Oh, yeah. Well, I hope you weren't as nervous now.
No,
So yeah. So again, like in terms of like just moving on to final reflections, thank you for educating me and our audience, to those that don't have as great of an understanding of Mapuche people. I think we all took a lot from this video tonight. Um, and like I said, I hope for a better future ahead. I think people are being more open-minded, and there is a bright future for the Mapuche people and Indigenous people and everyone. So we'll see how things go. But for anyone in the audience, if you had any other like questions, feel free to ask them. But again, we are going to wrap up here. I'll put this link into the there we go in the comments. If you want to talk or anything of that nature, we will maybe talk for a few minutes after. Um, but yeah, as you can see, the audience enjoyed the show. Ancient America's enjoyed it. Red Dog, everyone's happy. Well, ignore that one. Um, so yeah, Carla, did you have anything you wanted to add, or were you good?
I just wanted to add one last thing. I wanted to let everybody know what Mapuche stands for. What does it mean? Like the actual word. So Mapu means land. Che, P-H, means people. In plural, could be female or male. It doesn't have a gender. So it means people of the land together. And another thing, I don't know if you ever heard of Che Guevara. You ever heard of Che
Yeah.
Guevara?
Oh yeah.
What do you
I've
think
seen
he's
his.
for the because he's people. Che is people. Che
Oh,
Guevara,
okay. Yeah.
in general, female, male, it's people. And that's why he was called is Mapuche language because he had the same ideas that we have: anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, we anti-government, and it's about the revolution. But anyway, yeah. So I just wanted to clear that up. Mapuche means people of the land.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really amazing. I didn't know that. I was always curious on the word.
Yeah, Che, we call Che people. Like instead of saying, Che, come here, or come here, or you guys come here over here. It's to call people. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
you, you're
But
welcome.
I guess I did have one final question. It's always been on my mind. Was that I read a lot of Spanish logs about the Mapuche people in southern Chile, indigenous people, and they had said that they were quite tall. Like they saw people that were like 7 foot. So obviously, maybe that was exaggerated. Maybe it was not. That'd be cool if it was. But like Mapuche people are quite tall, or the average height, maybe because in Peru, in the Andeans, people are a little bit smaller, shorter. But maybe in southern Chile, it's different.
Um, I say average.
Average.
The
Okay.
Spaniards wrote their journals when they arrive at Tierra del Fuego or right down south, the end of the world, they call it. And they said the people were really tall. But
Yeah.
I think over the centuries, they kind of shrunk because what they been, uh,
Diets changed.
the environment, everything is like
Sure.
their whole way of living changed. So they kind of shrunk. But yeah, they are a little tall. Yeah, but they were
Because
not that small.
yeah, because I'm almost 6'3", so I always like wonder, is like, well, maybe I have relatives like
And
deep
you
down
do,
south,
you
because
do, yeah.
Speaking people are not so uh not many of them are quite tall, but some are actually. But it's known that Andean people aren't the tallest in the world. But thank you again, Carla. I know it's kind of a random question. Audience, thank you so much. I have the you know not panel, I'm sorry. Yeah, the panel link. So if you guys want to talk for a few minutes, we can. But that being said, I think we will wrap this up. So, audience, you guys all have a good night. Thank you for watching. If you guys like the video, please don't forget to give us a like. But we will be saying goodbye. So you all have a good night, and thank you again.
Good night. Marichihueo.
Goodbye.